Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to the podcast, brothers. This is Rick Moore, past master of Fort Worth 148.
This is Billy Hamilton, current senior warden of Fort Worth 148.
This is Gabe Yagish, junior warden of Fort Worth 148.
This is Evie Kirkendall, master of ceremonies, Fort Worth 148. And tonight we have an extra special guest.
This is Craig Enderli of Cedar Bow Lodge number 321.
Did you say Cedar Bayou?
That's correct.
I didn't know if it was Cedar Bayou or Bayou.
That's right, Cedar Bow.
Sweet. Well, we're glad to have you on, Craig. Do you have an office in the lodge?
I do. I am the current treasurer.
Oh, cool. Now, I know you've got a few positions Grand Lodge-wise as well, right? What are you currently doing there?
I am on Most Worshipful Paul Underwood's planning team, and I'm also the Grand Lodge of Texas Internet Committee chairman.
Sweet. So we got the horse's mouth.
He invented the internets.
The series of twos.
Awesome. Well, cool. That sounds like a winner. I think today that's what we're going to have you on for, is to talk a lot about Grandview. I'm sure we'll touch on the Internet Committee as well, because we've been interviewing Grand Lodge committees, kind of what they do, overview kind of stuff. But I want us to focus on the Grandview, how Master Masons and secretaries can get the most out of that. But before we do, so our last podcast was about installations. And Brother Travis Norman reached out to me and he goes, "Hey, you never talked about the benefits of a closed installation." So I thought that'd be a good discussion question. What do you guys feel the benefits of a closed installation would be?
I think the silence kind of points it out.
No, I would say, I was just waiting for somebody to jump in first, but I would say less cat wrangling. You're going to have a lot less complications when you're dealing with Master Masons only. That is a very nice thing. I am very, as somebody who has been doing a lot of Masonic dinners and events and stuff, I appreciate simplicity of organization quite a lot. It also makes it a lot more exclusive, right? So there's a special sense of, hey, this is for us, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of advantages to, say, inviting people to come to installation and having a large group get together and making it a family event. That's a fine environment. But there is also something very special about being able to take an event and say, this is for us. It's not for anybody else. And that's what makes it special, right? It's a very intimate sort of environment.
No, and I think that's really ultimately, it used to be a closed ceremony. And I think a lot of what Travis was getting at is the fact that we have flung our doors open to the public, and it's like, hey, come look what we're doing. And it's taken the edge off of that mystique that we've had at one point, that we're almost, it does almost put off a beggar's sense, in a way, especially if it's not done right. But I could see how a lodge having a closed installation could get hooked on that, because like you say, it's a more intimate setting. You've got, the flow's better, and, it's just all of the guys there together.
I could also see an argument to be had regarding closed installations, because one of the things we talked about is bringing our friends and family, mostly our family, into the fold, letting them see what we do, especially like our spouses who probably never get to really see what we do inside the lodge. And so it ends up being like this kind of come look at me, even though we emphasize that it's always about the guests and it should be about the guests and the people who the worshipful master is championing as his support organization. But at the same time, there's probably better venues to say thank you to your spouse than your installation. And
Yeah.
so I could absolutely see the argument to be had that's not the place for, friends, family, and wives and kids and things of that nature. That if a lodge really wants to say thank you to their spouses or to their, friends and family, or the rest of the lodge writ large, there are much better places to do it. So I could absolutely see the argument for closed installations and different venues of thanks for other folks.
So
Yeah.
I think there is an opportunity also that it can be done in a very impressive format. I've only attended one closed installation, and it was in a different jurisdiction, but the way it was done was actually really nice. So the outgoing officers started in their stations, their normal stations. Then when the installation happened, they stood up, walked to the center near the altar. They took their I guess they went through the installation, and what happened was, as each person was installed, they went to their new station, and then they closed in their new station. So there was an advantage there that the pressure was on them that they had to learn their new position in advance, right? So there's no excuse if you didn't know it, because everyone else was going to know it too. You'd be the odd man out. Um, and as a visitor, I actually found it very impressive, right? Because it says that there's some forethought in um, advanced, I guess, preparation that was done by the lodge officers in order to make it a smooth transition.
Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to them both. Absolutely. So, whatever fits your culture, get after it. Uh, make it happen, because obviously I'm not against them. We do them all the time. So carry on. But I thought that'd be an interesting question to pose, because it's something we didn't touch on in that last. Because you do have the right to do that closed. It's almost to the point to where lodges think they have to do it in an open ceremony.
Well,
No.
and don't you get Vanguard Award points if you do an open ceremony, or am I thinking of the Zerubbabel Award?
No, that's it. Well, it used to be. I'm not for sure now, but it used to be like a general. Did you have an open meeting? That family can come to, and most people use the installation for that.
Okay, so did they take that requirement off, or?
Yeah, I don't think it was ever a requirement that you had to hold an open installation. You just had to hold an open meeting. So it could have been anything, history of your lodge that the wives were invited to. As long as it was in the minutes, you went to refreshment kind of thing.
Yes, we held an open master's degree. Wait, what?
Yeah, that's definitely not going to get you the Vanguard.
You're like, unconventional. I like your style. Probably not happening.
Craig, before we jump into personal questions, did you want to tack anything onto that?
No, you guys covered it good.
Righty then. So before we get into all the good stuff, tell us about yourself outside the Masonic lens.
All right. Well, I married my high school sweetheart. She's a Marine. Served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I've got. She now works for the school district. And we have 3 kids. My oldest is 16, Dakota, and I have two boys, William and Ryan. They're both in middle school. I'm 37. I'm fifth generation Texan. Enderleys immigrated to from Switzerland to Gonzales, Texas, and then they moved over here to East Harris County, West Chambers County. That's where I've lived most of my life. Um, I work at the ExxonMobil refinery in Baytown uh, for S&C Lavalin Engineers, and I'm the supervisor over the field engineers and surveyors and laser scan techs. Uh, so I get to work with new new technology to measure different objects, drums and towers and piping, and then we get to help with that front end with the engineering and design phase, and then get to see it all the way through final product construction, do some QC, managing critical points. So to make sure everything gets billed for the design. That's pretty much it.
Interesting. So when, why, and what lodge did you join?
Well, I'm going to start with kind of start with the I didn't have any Masonic connections that I can really think of when I was growing up until about the age of 16. This will probably be really the second time I've really told this story. That the actual first time that I can recall Masonry touching, getting into my life was I was in the living room of my friend's house, who just so happened to be a girl, which later is my wife. And there's a portrait that was on the wall, and never really noticed this portrait before. And it was my mother-in-law, and she's dressed in all white, in a white dress, and she has this giant red cross on her, and it's this beautiful, ornate, kind of portrait. And but immediately I was like looking at it like, what in the world is going on here? This kind of, and I asked, I kind of remember asking about like, hey, what's the deal with the painting? And then my uh, my future wife began to explain to me about Masonry, about, well, she's in the social order of the Beauseant, and my dad is a past master, and I'm a rainbow. And at the time, I really didn't understand it. I kind of at first didn't know exactly what everything was, but I kind of just let it go. But I think that was the fire starter point. So I give my mother-in-law and my wife the credit for my first touch point on Masonry. And then the next big time that I actually remember Masonry. And I mean, I knew my father-in-law at that point was a Mason and all that, but I don't really recall anything until my wedding day. And on my wedding day, there were so many people there that I didn't know. I had no clue who they were, but they were all, they were actually all Masonic brothers that were there for my wedding, but they were there at the invitation of my father-in-law. And so it kind of was impressive to me that these guys didn't even know me, never met me before, but they were there, and it was obvious that they weren't family. They were there was something a little bit different about it, and it never really left me. So I call that the pilot light, of Masonry for me, because they started with that spark, but that was kind of the pilot light, let it kind of go simmer. And then fast forward 5 years later, I'm on a project out here at Exxon, and I'm working with a bunch of guys, and just one day, one of the guys just simply just kind of asked me, how come you never joined the lodge? I mean, what was your deal? And I just told him straight out. I was like, well, my father-in-law never invited me. So, and the guy laughed, and everybody kind of knows the story of kind of what would
Yeah.
happen next. And so I petitioned Cedar Bayou Lodge in summer of 2009. By the end of the year, I was raised, and before the year was over, I pluraled at Baytown Lodge 1357, which is not too far away. And then that was that was a fast journey, which I think leads into what you're going to ask me next. About what offices I held.
Go ahead.
I immediately got in the lineup. That coming 2010 year, I'm pretty sure it was 2011 or 12. I can't remember off the top of my head. I became worshipful master over at Baytown Lodge, a relatively smaller lodge. So obviously it was, too quick to the east, in my opinion, after doing the journey. But
Yeah.
but I was in both lodges, and so I after I got done there as worshipful master, I served secretary as 1 year. And then I like to say I was elevated to the position of treasurer for 3 years, and then seasons changed, so I got out of the officer lineup over at Baytown. But Cedar Bayou, I was worshipful master in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
and then after getting out of there, I've been treasurer ever since. So I think if I'm asked to serve as treasurer again, I think this will be 7 years I've been treasurer over there.
One of those positions you almost die in.
I was appointed DDGM, past Grandmaster Terry Stogner in 2019 for Masonic District 30F. I was also on his planning team as well. I was a latecomer to his team, but I did help him out traveling to conferences and such. And
Gotcha.
I was that was the year 2019. I was elected to, or excuse me, I was appointed to serve on the Internet Committee. There was someone's unexpired term that they needed somebody to fill, so
Gotcha.
I got on board there.
So it
and
was
then
Terry.
The last thing I can say is that after the annual communication, the board of directors for the Texas Masonic Charities Foundation met, and I was elected as a board director on there.
Oh, that happened at Grand Lodge?
Immediately following.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I totally missed that. Yeah. And did I catch it right that Terry did appoint you as on the Internet Committee? That was his year?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think that's a good segue to get into this stuff, because I know a lot of guys are very interested in that Grandview system and things like that. So, do you know when and why we switched to Grandview?
It's a little bit before my time, but my understanding is that I used the old system as that 1 year that I spent as secretary, and I know at the time that the system was having issues and that it was beginning to fail, and they were having to back it up quite a bit, and so they were trying to migrate to a new system, and so that was about 2011, 2012 is when they realized we need to start archiving this and importing this. And that's the moment they began to gradually move to Grandview. Now, its actual rollout time to secretaries, I don't know when that was, because
That was Kirby's
but
year, wasn't it? Was that Kirby's year? I don't know either. I'd be guessing. Anyway.
yeah,
So, I mean, I think it's almost a no-brainer question, but this is a better system than what we had, right?
definitely. I 100% believe so, because for that 1 year that I used it, that the previous system, it was great. It was built for its time. This particular one has so many more features, and the best part, um, about this is that it's user driven on helping maintain some records, and helping the continuous feed of information. That where before there were a lot of touch points that required the Grand Secretary's office to do a task before anything would proceed. And I know that was a difficult point for me, where at Baytown, when I was secretary, I took everything out of the filing cabinet and I entered everything in there, all members, going all the way back to the
Yeah.
beginning. But the problem was, I had to enter a record and submit it, and then I had to type a long email to the Grand Secretary's office and say, "Hey, could you progress these?" And then they would progress it and send it back to me, and then I would have to go to the next step and then send the email again. And
Uh,
so I couldn't do a full person. I would have to do one step at a time and ask them to progress it.
yeah.
And it was that's a lot to do. But here with this system, you are progress. There's more user control. There's still controls in place to prevent errors and such, but it's not required that another person look at it and activate it before it goes forward, which is
Gotcha.
that's a big moving point.
Yeah. Streamline everything.
Mm.
So I know this system as well has a side for master masons to use, not just secretaries. How do they get signed up for that?
Well, the easiest way to tell somebody to get there is go to the Grand Lodge of Texas webpage, which is Grand Lodge of Texas, all one word, no spaces, .org. And you can click in the upper right-hand corner where it says Member Portal. And the first time you sign in, it's probably a good idea to have your dues card handy with you, because you'll need your member number, and I believe you'll need to know what your home lodge is to register for the first time. You'll just need to register with an email address as well.
Gotcha. So when they get signed up, what amenities do they have? Why would they want to sign up?
Well, the whole intent behind the system, has a notification. There are features that are built in that are their resources, and managing your profile, and things like that. But the biggest portion is a notification portion of it. So it is as good as the information that is entered into it, and is pulled, and it's likewise pulled out of it by the master mason. So the secretary can all day go in there and add events or add resources, notifications and things. But if the master masons who are wanting this information are not signed up, they'll never get it. So that
Gotcha.
I believe, to me, is the biggest key. The secondary of that is the control over your profile. Before, likewise, that touch point that I was talking about, there was a
Mhm.
touch point with the member as well. If they wanted to just update their email address, they had to give it to the secretary on a scratch piece of paper, and then they would have to go enter that in for them. But in this way, there's complete control. You change your address, you can go in there and do it yourself. When notifying your secretary is by you updating the portal.
Yeah. And I know, like for me and you, I know the communication is the biggest selling point for us. But I know there's a lot of cats out there too that when I was secretary and this rolled out and they signed up, they're like, wait, my profile's all wrong. It doesn't have this when I did this year. So that's a big deal for guys too, to make sure that their Masonic record is correct.
Yeah, that is key too. I have run across that several times where I've heard somebody say, "Hey, there's a glitch. I've noticed, my everything's off by 1 year in my profile, or
Yep.
in my Masonic history or something." And they would probably never know about it unless it wasn't for this. And I'll tell you another one that I try to tell everybody, remind somebody when you're going to update your profile, and that is uh, making sure that you update who your spouse is.
Mm.
Putting that on there is pretty important, because this helps with that whole situation of later down the down the road, of having a widows list. And we really push really hard for that on our side at our lodge, saying make sure you go in there and put that information in there, so that way we have an accurate list to go by.
That's a good point. Yeah, make sure the
And
wives.
that has a little feature in there for secretaries to go in there and update addresses for widows. And also there's a little toggle in there that says that the widow doesn't want to be, or wants to be contacted. But uh, we can do everything we want all day, but if we don't have the information to act upon it,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard.
No, and when you say resources can be added, do you mean like the secretary can add files, like add your bylaws, rules, and regulations?
That's right. There is a section. There's a section in there that they can add particular information about events, or like you said, or bylaws, or other particular information, news that they need to spread and share.
Gotcha. And then the master mason's going to have access to his lodge's resources, correct?
That's right. His lodge's news and events, and there's also those other information will be in there. So if the grand secretary or the grand master issues a message, that's going to be available in there as well. Or if they establish an event, it'll show up in there. That's also where probably more commonly people think of the Grand Secretary's monthly maintenance newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
That's also available in that same location.
Yeah, you used to have to wait till stated meeting, but like for instance, when Orville had to retire, we knew that I mean, the Grand Master's able to send a email to every Mason that signed up. So
Yeah.
if you're not on there, you're missing out on some important information that's coming, at light speed, and you don't have to wait for stated meeting to get that. Is there? I can't remember if there was. It's been a minute since I looked at it, but was there like a chat board, for lack of a better word?
There's a social section that is built in, but I have never actually used it, and I don't really know the functions
Yeah.
of it well enough to talk about it.
No,
But I
and
do know that it does exist, and that it is in there. I don't know if it's one of the features um, that the Grand Secretary's office had previously elected to have, where it's switched off. And so that may be one of those items that it's there, but it's not. It's just turned off, and that's probably a good point to say that the Grand Secretary's office is reevaluating a lot of those things, that are all those functions, and are going to make a quick decision on whether those actually should be deactivated for us.
gotcha. Now, I know one thing that probably won't be going away, and that's the find meeting or find meetings and lodge locator function on
Yeah.
there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the fine meeting is a quick way to look. I believe the parameters are set at 10-day look ahead. It's based off of a zip code or a city, I believe, that you enter. It also has an option for you to let your phone locate you. And it's probably a good time to say that also I've had this question come up a couple of times on whether this app actually tracks your location while either in use um, or while it's dormant. And the answer is no. It only uses it for that information and then it dumps it. So there is no tracking information.
Gotcha. I know I pulled up the Find Meetings, and that is actually very handy to where it just blink and it pulls them up in sequential order from the, one closest to happening to, further out. So that's
Yeah, and
definitely.
the lodge locator, you can search by lodge name or number or city, even, and it will query all those for you.
Gotcha. So, really, the last question I had on here about Master Mason using it is there an app?
Yes, there is an app. You can get to the app. You just use your web browser of choice. Go to the Grand Lodge of Texas.org. In the upper right hand corner, click on Member Portal, and then in the right hand corner, there is up in the blue bar at the top. It'll say App. You can click on that app, and then you just follow the instructions depending on the type of mobile browser device that you're using. Just follow those instructions. Android, iOS. Now this is probably a time to say that it is a progressive web app, and so it has it'll put an icon on your browser, but it is not doing what most people traditionally think of as an app, where it's a standalone application. Um, this is a browser app, and the reason why that Grandview goes down this route is because in order to have an app put in the App Store, there's a lot of regulations and permissions
Yeah.
that have to be gone through, and those come at an expense. And so this is a way to get around that expense without cutting the corner of having an app, because there's no functionality that a non what you think of as a traditional app versus a progressive web application would really have. Um, this also, the other little thing, it goes through the hassle of if you have an update, the update is instantaneous, because each time it's reaching across the browser to actually pull the information up. But if this was a traditional app, you have to go back through approval. After it was approved, then an update would need to be downloaded, and so forth. So in many ways, it has a lot of advantage over
Yeah.
traditional process. So
Well, and I know it. I like it because it puts it. You just click on that little app link on your homepage there on your phone, and you're right there.
and I guess is a good time to tell you also is there is more development that's coming with Grandview. There's actually a virtual card that is available. Now it's available for you to see on your desktop too, but really the virtual card doesn't do you much good on a desktop really. But on your mobile phone, it does open up a new idea. Now I won't get into the specifics about law, but whether you can use that card or not. But I will talk about that there is a card, and the card is instantaneously based upon what your status is in Grandview system. So there's some advantages to be said about that down the road. There is a development right now with Grandview, which should come out fairly soon. I don't want to quote when, but they on a verification using where a particular officer of the lodge can actually scan a dues card, whether that be in paper format or an electronic format, and it would verify it using Grandview, giving a simple green light or a red light on whether the person is in good standing. Very similar to how we handle this at the annual communications through credentials.
Yeah.
It's the same program, except for it's rolled out to local lodges. So that should be coming pretty soon. You can right now use your virtual card if you go to a Grandmasters conference and they're checking you in. You can use that card because that barcode will scan on your phone to check you in.
I'm testing that out. I'm looking at mine right now. It's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know officially, because when you can scan it like that, being that you have that capabilities, you're tapping right into the system. But if you do go to another lodge, like you'd mentioned earlier, it's not legal yet. We've got to change our laws.
That's right.
Hopefully one day we can figure all that out, because it's not just as easy as, electronic dues cards, because what about other grand jurisdictions? You got to make sure you're getting into there too. So that one's gonna be a slow change. It seems like a no-brainer, but it's a few more ins and outs to it. So when it comes to secretaries, I mean, is there anything that jumps out to you that was a game changer for secretaries?
I think the game changer, the immediate game changer, is not having to update all these people's profiles. I think that's super. I can't say much more about that one, but I believe the ones that we're getting into, that we're slowly creeping into, is the whole tracking system with payment of dues. That system is not being fully utilized, and again, that's one of those items that was previously turned off by the Grand Secretary's office, and then it's slowly under review and evolving to be released because it's a feature that's built in. And I'm not an expert on that system, but that system is going to, I think that system is going to be a cost saver in the end. On how dues can be collected and how annual returns can be paid, and that's going to save both, I believe, local lodges and the Grand Lodge of Texas both money and headache.
Yeah, I know from what little I got to tinker with it, because when it first came out, you couldn't do much with it. But then, they had it to where you could set up, this guy's a 50, well, it automatically filled in. He's a 50-year member or endowed. You put in the amount for all the dues paying members, and it send them out an invoice. I mean, it was legit. And you're still going to have the guys that just have to get it in the mail, but that's going to be cut way down to eventually nothing, because as you get initiated, that's just the way it is. You get online dues notices.
Well, I think that's one more thing. One I just realized I didn't touch on was the resources, the actual resources section. The secretary does have it's available, all those different resources for them to fill out those certain forms or so forth. But with the movement of now that members have access to certain things, this year, the Internet Committee, we have been beginning to put things inside the resources sections that's not just for the secretary. We've put things in there for the treasurer. So if you're a treasurer, there's a couple of items in there, and then also master masons. There's a general section that just covers different lots of different topics that would be appropriate for them.
No, I think that's definitely a great thing, because there's a lot of stuff. Master Masons could be utilizing. I know the education committee puts out tons of good stuff for officers. Yeah.
Right. So we have a right now, and underneath that Master Mason section, all the Briscoe workshops, 2019 to 2011, I believe, they're all available in there.
That's legit. Y'all been working. Last time I looked, there wasn't anything in there.
Is there any way to measure how many times the different files have been downloaded or accessed? And if so, are there any workshops that are downloaded more often than others?
You know, there's different ways to metrics these different files on how they're downloaded. I don't think anyone's ever looked at it, but there is a way. You know, most of these files, you know, that I was talking about, it's only been out since the annual communication, so probably we don't have a really good baseline on it yet. But there is a way that we can dive into that and look at that.
Oh, I just pulled it up. There's Masonic etiquette for the Master Mason and protocol. Balloting chart. That's legit. That's a good one. You know, is it a show of hands or a ballot box? You got the form. Workshops.
And these
there.
are all accessible. You can, if you're in lodge and you're uncertain, you can get on your app and you can go to that balloting chart right there. You don't have to save it on your phone. You know exactly where to go.
You've got mentoring program for the lodges, engaging membership, the pass it on, cornerstones, how to do those, and the directory of lodges in the state of Texas. That's legit. So there you have it. So
and then also, like, so the treasurer one, you know, if you're a treasurer out there, just to mention those, you know, there's a little segment of, you know, brief roles and responsibilities, and then the applicable Form 62, if anybody uses that out there instead of their own ledger, and then the financial stability and budgeting program that was issued out last year by the DDGMs.
Gotcha. And I've got on here a tip that I figured out, because I know as a secretary, you go looking through those forms for something. And I was used to the old system and the way they had them ordered, and it's different in the Grandview. I couldn't ever find anything hit the old Control F, as Billy taught me so long ago, and keyword search. You can find them so much quicker, because that can be very cumbersome. So did we miss anything the secretaries can do that we need to touch on?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, we talked about these specific communications, you know, setting up events and sending out those news information. But maybe the one thing I didn't mention underneath that communications dashboard for secretaries, you know, you once you get in there, you can see what your percentage is on what percentage of your membership has valid email addresses, valid mobile phones, home phones, addresses, and then it goes into your posting of your events, and activities.
How does Grandview test the validity of contact information?
Returned mail through the Grand Lodge of Texas is the only way to test those addresses. Yeah.
So like the phones though, like is there some sort of like text message or phone call that happens with the phones, and email, and actually the email as well?
Well,
because I know obviously if mail gets returned, then the physical address isn't valid. But what about the other ones?
Yeah, there's no. I believe email on the email when we do a mass mail out, it will flag it, and then it will it'll quote it as undeliverable. But I've actually never seen a mobile phone or a home phone. I've never seen the percentage ever change. So there's probably not a way on those.
Well, and I'm, because I noticed that it had, when it asked you your preferred method of contact, text is one of them. And I'm guessing that may not be turned on right now because we've tinkered with that and nobody
Yeah.
ever gets a text from that. So hopefully
Yeah.
you can nudge somebody, Craig. Even if
Yeah.
we had to
That
pay
that
for
is one
that.
of those features.
Yeah, because that,
There is a there is a concern, also about um, worrying about bothering people too much on sending communications, and so that's one of those items that people are sensitive of getting complaints about. Hey, I'm receiving these messages.
yeah, I can get that. But you got the choice. Go log in.
Their
We'll
own
mail
member
it.
preferences.
Yeah, we'll mail it to you if that's your preference. We won't text you.
Yes.
But I know, especially with our lodge, to where we've got a bunch of young guys running around that might check their emails every 3 days. Those are a thing of the past. And so if it's not a push notification or a text message, it's not something they're getting instantly.
Right. And push notifications are not rolled out completely yet with this the web app, um, and so but that is something that's coming here pretty soon.
See, that's
That
even
will
better.
you'll actually receive push notifications. So
Yeah, that will be legit. I love it. See, and that's what I like about this system so much more than because the last is you got what you got. There was no updating. I used it for 6 years or 5 years, and it was the same every year, in and out. And this one's constantly being updated. So, if I remember correctly, when we did DDGM training this year, they had mentioned how the DDGMs have access to a certain portal. Do you know about that?
yes, so DDGMs. Now these are DDGMs over a district, not at larges.
Mm.
But DDGMs have a dashboard that shows all of the members of that district. Um, and so it actually gives you a little bit of a broader view. You have a read-only access
Mm.
that appears much like the secretary's dashboard, in which you can go in and see you see progress um, of candidates, EAs, fellow crafts. You can also dive in deeper, find contact information, um, of each lodge, see what their membership contact information percentages are at. Um, See a lineup of all the officers electronically, which that's also available to members of that lodge. Through the dashboard, you can go in and see who you can go in and just see who are the officers of the lodges in which you're a member of and what their contact information is, and then who your district leadership team is and their contact information.
Gotcha. And do they have access to send out emails district wide?
They do. Very much like how
Cool.
that secretary can go in and create an event or make a post. They can, on behalf of the Grandmaster, they can do that. Matter of fact, I use that quite a bit for my year's DDGM. It was the way I posted about when I was going to be at a particular lodge, my schedule and such.
Man, I'm writing that down because yeah, I don't think our DDGM's used it yet, but he's going to, and I know there's another guy that I may have to help him with. But what a great way to communicate something district wide. We get all four because we've got four in Tarrant County. We get all four. We cover Tarrant County that quick. That's a lot of Masons.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
And
So,
it'll allow you to go in there and you know, as far as DDGM, it'll let you go in there and pluck who you want the communication to go to. Um, it allows a selection for all master masons, um, officers of the lodge.
um,
So there's a way that there's some specifics in there that as a DDGM you can tell it who your audience is.
gotcha. No, that would be a great tool to start utilizing. And DDGMs, do they have access to the forms like a secretary?
They do. They do.
Gotcha. Okay. So they can go snag those off of there.
But it is important to make sure I mention DDGMs only have a read-only access as far as you know the membership of all those lodges, and unless they are also a secretary of a particular lodge. But so they could go in and they can see this information, but they again they can't change anything.
Gotcha. And I remember what I was going to ask you. As far as them accessing that, so like a new DDGM, it's just the same way, right? They're just logging into that member portal, and it's just been
That's
updated
right.
because they are. Okay, gotcha. So,
That's
so
right. Their permission levels change. So, you know, sometime after installation, uh, it was probably it was probably Saturday night sometime. The old DDGMs got turned off, and the new DDGMs got that read-only permission, and so they'll have it until you know sometime that evening after installation. Likewise, same thing with you know lodge secretaries. It's switched on and off. It's just user-based permissions.
gotcha. Interesting. That's a great feature for them to be able to communicate and keep tabs, see what lodges are doing what, and if they've got a lot of activity going on, go over there and visit, see what they're doing. It's a great tool. So I can just imagine as Grand Secretary, everything kind of beefs up to another level. Like we talked about, they can send out statewide communications and stuff like that. Is there anything that the Grand Secretary has that's unique, that we haven't really covered?
Well, you know, uh, really, instead of just Grand Secretary, it's actually Grand Lodge. Um, so the Grand Master and a few other people that are dealing with data for the Grand Master, you know, such as the Internet Committee or somebody on credentials or you know something like that needs this type of uh, dashboard, information for different reports um, or providing information to the Grand Master about particular questions about the jurisdiction. Can see things, very much like the secretary can about what type of contact information do we have for uh, all the Masons in Texas. How many uh, to date. This Masonic year, how many EAs, fellow crafts, master masons there are, how many deaths, um, um, how many petitions were registered, or candidates, filing paperwork, and it was entered into Grand Lodge, into Grandview rather. There's also some other like audit reports and things like that that are built in for annual returns um, that are really just used in the Grand Secretary's office.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming it like compiles average age like it does for the lodge, but for the state.
Yes, yes, it does. Also at a little bit of a more detailed level, and it also candidates, entered apprentices, fellow crafts, master masons.
Oh, so you can break it down all the way into that. Does it give
Yeah.
you
So right now, like I just so happen to have it up. Master Masons is 66. That seems
oh,
surprisingly low.
that does.
But yeah, 66 is what it says. So
It's just all like, Fort Worth Lodge dragging down the average age.
I was thinking if we like use my lodge, I would think it was like 87. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'll get something over that. Fellicrafts, candidates do Fellicrafts. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it shows it down to the 100th. But but it's 42 is the average age. So
Interesting.
yeah,
42. So does it
42.
give
I would assume that's a big swing. You'd have to really look at that data. Averages, as a numbers person, that kills me because it really don't tell the full story. You'd really have to need to look at that a little bit further. But yeah,
does it give you the average length of time for progressing?
there's a way for us to pull out that, but it doesn't show that on the dashboard.
Gotcha. It doesn't just pop that up. See, that's neat that you would have access to be able to crunch those, though, because if nothing else, you could just print out a report and make it, make an average of it. But to me, that kind of stuff is what's going to light the path to the direction we need to be going to, not only attract new members, but more importantly, retain them. Because we can start figuring out who's doing what right, and start really drilling down on this kind of stuff. Because, I mean, you're not going to know what you're doing right or wrong if there's no data to track. There's no way to really verify it without it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, is there anything we missed? Because I just got one last question for you before we do that, I just wanted to wrap up Grandview and see if we missed anything.
No, I think that's, let me just mention one thing about endowments on the secretary side. You can pull a list of, you can go in there and pull the list of actual endowments, and that gives me a great topic that in the resources section, I'll put a place in there for endowments. And so often enough, I always hear somebody say, here, I want to make a donation. I'm endowed, but here's a donation, and I push my guys at my lodge to not do that, and to actually, I give them that form 77B, and I encourage them to write that $100 check so they can add to their endowment. If you go underneath the resource section, you'll see I put a section in there, so you can go see that. But that, as a treasurer, I really push all of our guys not to just make that one-time donation, to put that in that endowment, because that can, in the long run, especially if you're a younger Mason, and you continuously do that every time dues are due, you send off that form, it'll really help your lodge out in the end.
Yeah, because it could add up quick. But yeah, I saw that. So they just basically go on there to the resources, print off Form 77B, hand that in with, it's at least $100 check if I remember right. It's in increments of 100. So
increments of 100. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you just hand it off, and voila, that makes things so much easier. Because man, the hassle of, brother secretary, I need to add money to my account or to my endowment. And it's like, okay, I'll print that form out and bring it next time. Dag nabbit, I forgot it. I'll bring it next time. It's always something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So before we wrap this up, I know as on the internet committee, you guys deal a lot with this Grandview system. What else do you guys oversee, if anything?
Well, we're also in charge of social media outlets, and so those are anything from say Facebook. Right now, we have a campaign as chairman that I decided that we're issuing out one video a week on our Facebook page, and we're getting content from everybody, all these different committees, to help with that, and we're pooling in the a YouTube channel as well, and you can go to our Facebook page and get all those details to get to that YouTube channel.
I'm gonna go look it up now because I'm subscribed to the old one.
Yes.
So there's two now, right?
There's two now. We don't know who has the keys to the old account. So we had to make after a year of searching and finding, we decided we needed to move on and just create a new one, which is linked to the Grand Lodge of Texas webpage.
What? I don't see it on Facebook. What's it under? Or do you what's the name
I should
of
know
it?
that answer, but
You don't know the name of the page, do you, off the top of your head?
I think it's Grand Lodge of Texas AF and AM. It is Grand Lodge of Texas AF and AM.
There you go, guys. So go YouTube that, search that on YouTube and subscribe there. I know personally the videos have been coming out, been great, but the one that you guys did on the Masonic last rites, that was legit. It was legit.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun to actually make, and so what is great about it is that all the content that we're getting is, we're just soliciting people from across the state to bring this in, different committees. We're working with the Committee on Work right now to produce a couple. We've got one, or we've got several that are coming out from Masonic Service and Education Committee, even a throwback one from 1978. And I've never seen this film before. It's like 26 minutes long, and that we're actually working with them to make a 2020 version of that film as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff, but one a week, trying to make sure we get one out there.
Gotcha. So I found it. The new one is just Grand Lodge of Texas AF and AM. The old one is the Grand Lodge of Texas AF and AM. At least that's what I found. Because the new one, the Grand Lodge of the one without the, has all the new videos. The old one, got some good stuff.
The old videos are on the new one.
Oh,
so
okay.
It is
good.
So we went in there and we either got the originals that were uploaded, or we got them off the old channel and are republishing them on this new channel.
Yeah, gotcha.
So we won't have any lost content.
There you go. Yeah. Merge them all together. Yeah, I just finished all the past Grandmaster interviews on that old one, and there is some good stuff in there. Which, speaking of, do you know when the Internet Committee was established? I just learned this afternoon.
I have. Nope. You'll get me on this one too.
It was David DeBrell, and it was like, of course, because he was on Paul's planning team for a while before he passed away. And I mean, just super sharp when it came to technology. And I mean, that guy was not a youngster.
Yeah.
But yeah, he pushed that through. I can't remember the year he served, but there you go. There's your marker. Go find when DeBrell served. Because they asked him
on this YouTube channel, we've got some cornerstones. Got some cornerstones on there. I think you got Pretty sure that there is there's actually an installation, I think, in there as well. And of course,
Interesting.
videos, Cornerstone. I think I said that as well. I think there's a couple of cornerstones and Grandmasters conferences, and there's also some of these the videos that are made for the Become a Mason videos, 15, 30 second clips are on there, so you can share those.
And I'm pretty for sure I saw the Grandmaster, a video of the Grandmaster on here too, right?
That's right. His, have a different addresses from the Grandmaster. We're putting on here the introduction to all the Grand Lodge officers, all that.
Excellent. Cool. So did we miss anything before we wrap this thing up, Craig?
The only one, and I always get this, and I was thinking you were going to ask me, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways.
Please.
Is everyone asks me, when are we getting into Instagram? And I promise we'll do it. It will happen very, very soon. We're not there yet.
I actually did have a question about when will we blank. And the question that I have is, when are we getting an online store? Because I noticed that there is technically a page.
Yep.
If you go to, I won't say the address, but it's easy to find. There is a shop portal. And at one point in time, it's not active now, but at one point in time, there was merchandise up there and like a checkout system, but not anymore.
Yes.
So it seems like y'all were experimenting with something. When is that going to roll out? Like as a full-blown thing?
Yeah. So the Grand Secretary's office is working the logistics and the legal portion behind that, and they are going to be the driving force on when this is going to kick off. So we've had infrastructure, I think, from what I can see, it looks like we've had infrastructure for 2 or 3 years in order to have an online store. But the logistics issue was slowing everything down. Who's going to fill the orders, taxes, all that, shipping and such. And so I am aware of that this week, that there was a discussion with merchandise in the Grand Secretary's office about inventory and all those other questions that I said. And I was told that sometime in the next couple of days that we will be given a path forward. And if we're given a path forward, all we got to do is update the photographs and the logic, and we're ready to go. So the internet pieces, it was there. We noticed a couple of months ago somebody was getting in there and they were tinkering with, like, trying to buy some things or trying to do some things. So we had to go in there and shut it off because it doesn't go anywhere. It just keeps notifying us in the dashboard that there's an error, that somebody just keeps getting a page error. So
well, that sounds like it'll be a winner when you get it online. There's no way it won't be, though. I can't wait.
Yeah, I think it'll be very successful.
Well, Evie, did you fall asleep? Billy? Y'all got anything?
I've just been listening the whole time. A lot of interesting stuff there about, especially the internet stuff, because that's been my my biggest, I guess, complaint about like Grand Lodge responsiveness is the lack of internet and web-based presence, and to hear that it's actually moving forward in a 21st century direction is refreshing news to my ears.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. It's going to be like
Yeah,
turning a
overall, a
battleship.
positive step.
Yeah. Tough stuff. All right, gentlemen. The quote of the week that I've got, this guy's not a Mason that I know of, John Medea. The quote is, "Simplicity is about subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful," which seemed to fit because
Oh, I like that.
her last system was obviously way behind the times. I feel like we've taken a step into the future. All right, Gabe.
It's like we're in Star Trek now.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. We're building it. Gabe, you want to throw out contact info and we'll shut her down?
Sure. Folks, if you would like to learn more about us, you can find us at www.fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, but we don't use Twitter. Our email is info148@fortworth148.org. And you can learn more about our educational symposium, Texas Masonicon, at texasmasonicon.com. That's texasmasonicon.com. Please remember to leave a review of the show. And if you like us, give us 5 stars.
Yes, sir. And news should be coming shortly about Masonicon. So get your tickets. Early bird's still here. It'll be around for a little bit, but you don't want to miss that.
I'm excited to start releasing info on speakers. We always leave that as a surprise every year. And it's one of my favorite things because everyone's going, okay, so who's the next guy?
Man, and I talked to our keynote speaker all over the phone, and I'm so excited. He seems like such a great brother. So
awesome.
Just hold on and we'll let you know.
You guys do such a good job at that. I really I enjoy it every year.
Man, we appreciate it. It's a labor of love for sure, because it is a lot of work. It is. All right, gentlemen.
And
it's
by
been
the way,
fun.
Britt and Gabe, do we still have any tickets available for the meal before, the night before, the festive board?
Yes, there are still some festive board tickets available, but they are going very fast.
Yes, the festive board with speaker Chuck Dunning. So get your tickets while you can. Those are going. All right, gentlemen, is that it? I think we got it all. All righty, brothers. This is Rip Moore signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.
This is Gabe Yagish signing off.
This is Evie Kirkendall signing off.
And this is Craig Enderli signing off.